Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are upgrading the XYL Unicorn. This video has been a long time coming. I've actually recorded this actual process a couple times now, hoping third time's the charm. Yeah, the other two recordings, there was just some parts that were released and I felt like those were a good fit and I wanted to add those in, and there was just no way to get everything to go together in post. So I decided, you know what, we're gonna just start it all over again, record from start to finish. And we're gonna do something a little bit different for this upgrade video. So you have to tell me if you like this style better than the previous styles, where I previously would explain what I was upgrading as I was upgrading it. This time for the Unicorn, and possibly going forward, depending on the feedback, we're going to be going through the upgrades first, like one by one, where they came from, who designed them, where I purchased them from, whatever, and then we'll do a full like kind of build, like over top view. No talking, just getting the actual upgrades done from start to finish. So let me know if this kind of works out better for you guys. It's going to make it a lot easier to kind of timeline through the entire thing. It's going to be like, hey, here's the different parts, and here's how we installed everything. So before we get into the parts that I am upgrading my Unicorn with, I wanted to talk a little bit about the parts that I've designed so far that aren't quite ready yet, or have failed miserably, and I kind of abandoned them. So first up is the extension for the Picatinny rail for the front pump grip. This basically goes here. If you saw the comparison video from last week with the XYL Unicorn and the Seagull, this was featured there as well. This was basically my answer to replace the part that the actual pump grip attaches to. This was to give it a little bit of an extension so you could use a vertical grip from Worker to pump this thing so you wouldn't smash your fingers. Unfortunately, the 3D print just isn't quite strong enough. And that's also, partly because some of the stuff in here is plastic as well. So you pump it and it literally will start bend. You can feel it bend, and it's just a matter of time before those screws like just break this 3D print part. So for that to actually be a viable option, either one of two things would have to be true. Either you're going to have to use the stock spring so the prime isn't nearly as strong, not my cup of tea, or this is going to be up to some sort of metal, CNC or whatever, and then they'll have to replace the orange bits in here that are plastic with some sort of metal CNC part so that it's metal to metal and it's a lot more rigid. I don't think the actual frame of the Unicorn is bending. I think it was the internal pieces were they were just not happy. So that's the first failed part. This is something that I designed through several different iterations, and I've since abandoned it because I'm just going to stick with the pump grip that it comes with and set this aside. Now, the other upgrade that I started working on and I would like to continue working on because I feel like it's actually a viable option is this. A buffer tube stock. And I know that people are like, oh, well, there's a couple of those out already and people have already, solved that problem. Hear me out. This is something a little bit different. Not only is this a buffer tube stock that offers sling point, this is actually the older version. I apologize. I've got a newer version that has a sling point attachment down to the bottom, which solves one of the biggest issues that I have with this is there is no true sling point. Obviously you could use these pins, but there's no true sling point. But my newer version, I apologize, I grabbed the wrong one, basically replaces this metal orange piece back here and sticks right on here, uses the same hardware. I found that really wasn't a viable option, so I upgraded it to a washer, nut, and longer screw to kind of give it a little bit more rigidity. That's nothing new. But what I would like to do is use a longer spring and some type of pre-compression spacer with mine. The way I'm going to achieve this is by using this little spacer thing that you can move up and down the different, using these different the spaces for the locking feature of a buffer tube stock, and add some pre-compression, release the spring a little bit, kind of changing your FPS. That's kind of what I was working for. And the the benefit, or like kind of the big upgrade for this whole thing, which would open up a wide range of FPS doors for you, is you're no longer using like kind of like the wider spring. The spring kind of stump that this thing sits on is attached to this back plate. And so when you pull it off, that black piece comes out with it. And there's a hole that's perfect for something like a Seagull spring or a Harrier spring. I don't know if you're going to get a Harrier spring in here, but what I'm thinking is this will give you an opportunity to do a quick change. It'll slide all the way in, go through that hole, and marry up to the plunger head, the plunger head inside. So the actual pre-compression will be done with this backing here, and while it's not 100% yet, I'm still a little worried about the longevity and durability of it because it is a 3D printed part. I'm not too worried about the spring portion of it. I'm more or less worried about the screws and the attachment points from here to the blaster. But the pre-compression, all that stuff is spot on. There might need to be something designed for that hole that bridges from here to the inside of the blaster to make sure the spring isn't like buckling. That's one of the problems that I'm running into currently with that design. So that one's currently on hold. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the actual upgrade parts for this blaster. And kind of my version like 2.0, I guess, is what I'm going to be calling this. Because this is a substantial upgrade. There's some quality of life improvements, some camera improvement, the camera features, and then also some performance improvements. Now, everything around this has been kind of a culmination of this part right here. This was designed by myself. It's basically a 3D printed part that attaches directly to the Unicorn using mounting systems that are already included. So you will mount it through these two screws right here, and then it also uses the two top screws. I've also designed it with a little nub on the top here, or I guess on the front. This little section here is screwed in with a slightly longer than normal screw going into the base of the actual unit. This actually fits directly into the front of this first iron sight. It gives it just a little bit more rigidity, gives you a little bit more peace of mind that the front of it isn't going to rock off. But this has been designed from the ground up for my system and what I use it for. So I got Picatinny on the left. This is for my camera system, so I've got, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the right side is for a flashlight system that I use. This has got a kind of faux M-LOK system designed right here. Works with normal M-LOK, but it's a little bit more elongated so that you can kind of adjust it as need be. I do sell this. I'm kind of proud of this. This is my first part that I sell on my Etsy shop. I will leave a link down in the description below. And you can kind of customize it how you want it. I got a couple different color variations. You could put M-LOK on both sides. You could put Picatinny on both sides. You can pick whichever side you want that different attachment point on. It's all there available for you. So definitely check it out if you're interested, if you've got a Unicorn. This is just a great option to keep the Unicorn in its current form factor as far as size goes. You're not elongating anything out the front. It's getting a little bit wider on the kind of front end here, but nothing that would be unheard of for adding a flashlight or a camera. So that's gonna, bulk up a little bit anyway, but it gives you a longer Picatinny rail on the top, which is super convenient. And then it's got 4 points of attachments along with, like I said, that front kind of nesting kind of nub, I guess you'd call it. So that's kind of what everything kind of branched off of from here. So next up, you saw it. I want to talk about it. One of the reasons why I've had to re-record this video was because of this package right here. And this is the metal internal upgrade kit for the Unicorn. So it comes with an upgraded spring yet again. This is a 2.0, I guess they're 2.0 spring. I'm not really sure what the actual measure, I think it's a 2.0 kilogram. I don't know. But it's a much heavier spring. It's a little bit shorter than the stock one. You've got that. You've got a metal pusher, plunger head. That's what this is called. You've got a metal plunger head that's got a newer upgraded O-ring, much tighter fit, and then you have kind of a pusher system in two pieces, but it's got double O-rings on the front. It's got an O-ring at the end of the threads, and then an O-ring here and an O-ring at the top where everything kind of marries up. So this is a really cool set. The one thing I do enjoy about this box that they've given you, or this foam, is they've designed it in a way that you can take the stock pieces and store them in this box. The cutouts and everything fit the internals perfectly. And that's really, really cool. Comes with some new screws and some O-rings and things like that for replacement parts. Super, super cool. Really excited to get that installed, bumping up that performance. We do have, and we will be testing the 1.8 spring, so that will be in our testing for this video as well. So not only the 2.0, but also the 1.8. So if you're interested in just the spring upgrade and not necessarily the full metal kit, you can get those numbers too here in this video. Next up, we're going to go with another part that I designed, and that's this riser rail for a Picatinny style reflex sight. This is just, I think this is a Faiachi, just a cheap one off of Amazon. Gets the job done, tried and true, especially for Nerf. You don't have to worry about, real steel. I think it'd probably lose its zero pretty quick because of the the amount of wear and tear that you get on it. But had to design a riser for it because it's got to get a little bit higher up off of the blaster. I added a little bit of detailing here to kind of match the front of the Unicorn. And yeah, it just gives it about, I think it's an inch and a half rise from the top there. So again, something that's necessary to use it is, get a little bit lift. Next up, kind of going along the lines of fixing issues that I had with the blaster and the lack of sling point attachments. This is just a quick Picatinny rail D-ring that has quick disconnect, which is nice. It's really nice. So if I'm just running the Unicorn itself and I'm not using a sling, I can take this off just slightly lighter, not as loud, or it doesn't have the thing kind of jingling around or anything like that. So that's super easy. That'll go on the back of the Unicorn behind my sight. Moving up a little bit further, let's talk actually about the very front. So this is my camera system, and I'm really excited to test this out. You guys have already seen some gameplay footage with this, so it's kind of it's a little bit of a spoiler already, but I'm really pleased with the way this works. The video quality could be a little bit better, but the price point and the usability kind of trumps that for me a little bit until I can find something that's higher quality that does everything that this does for the same price or better. But essentially, this is a motorcycle helmet camera. It's got two cameras, forward facing for my barrel, for my shots, and then a selfie cam on the other side. It's held together with a 3D printed arm, which I might actually redesign this a little bit. It's got a lot of metal hardware, 4 screws, 4 nuts to hold it in, and then an attachment screw and nut to get it to a Picatinny rail. So I might redesign this, but it's not going to be something drastic that would require a revision on the video. But just know that the benefit to this is only having one memory card, having 2 cameras, one source of audio. The editing process is that much easier because the audio lines up perfectly with both of them, so it's much easier to kind of bridge the gap. The video quality is substantially better than what I would have expected something like this to, I think this was like a third of the, well, it's more like 2/3 of the cost of 2 like GoPros or something like that. So much, much cheaper, and those are knockoff GoPros. But much cheaper. I'll leave links again to all this down in the description below, whether it's where I purchased it from, or where you can purchase it from me, or where you can download from my Thingiverse page, like this site riser rail. Next up is a way to power or keep power to the actual camera, and that is just a simple kind of, they call them lipstick batteries. I've had to extend it a little bit, thicken it up a little bit with some electrical tape to make it fit in this flashlight mount, but this will ensure that the camera stays charged all day long. The camera does a great job. The battery gets me through the day for the most part. But if I'm going into like a long like HVZ, or I'm just recording for, if I'm using this blaster all day long, this will ensure that I don't miss any footage whatsoever. I connect it with this. This is a USB to USB mini. It's right angled in a way that fits this blaster and this setup. The nice thing is it's tucked in nice and close you'll see when I get it installed. The USB port is basically in between the blaster and the camera, so nothing is sticking out to get caught on, or at least there's very little of it to get caught on. Huge pickup for that, and it's nice and short. That's what I like. Next up is my first foray into lights. This is an M-LOK light, which is unfortunate. I would have rather had a Picatinny rail. That's why there is M-LOK on this side, but it works for what I need it to. Fits in really well. It's got 2 different modes, or 3 different modes rather. You can press it once and it'll turn on, turn it off. You can press and hold and it'll kind of toggle it, and then it'll turn off when you let go. Or you can double press it, and I'm not going to do it, but when you double press it, it starts to strobe. I think it's a 400 lumen LED light. I'm not really sure. I think what I might design is a cap that goes over it that has like some type of filter that will dim that down quite a bit. Maybe add like a red gel to it, so it kind of gives that red effect, so it's not as hard on the eyes. But yeah, it's super nice. I really enjoy it, and the fact that it mounts to the top rail gives you that extra extra feel. And then last up, definitely not least, is my new favorite scar barrel. Bearing scar rather, excuse me. This is from Worker. It's got 12 bearings inside that have, I think it's a 15-degree angle. I don't really quite remember. Yeah, I think it's 15 degrees. Super easy to attach. I did have a problem with getting this off of the unit. Eventually, I was able to get a good grip on it and kind of give it a little bit of a rock and then twist off. Luckily, it didn't bend the barrel anyway like that. I reached out to Out of Darts because that's where I bought it from, and they mentioned heating up with like a hairdryer or a heat gun the inside here. It's because it's plastic, and that just enough to kind of give you a little bit of wiggle off of there. But they are tight, super tight. The other thing that I want to mention too is if you have an issue with, and this is still kind of an issue with when you put it on your barrel, this kind of spinning freely. One of the things you can do to stop that is getting some type of buffer, or I've kind of cut a paper towel down a little bit, and that helped relieve it a little bit. It's not spinning nearly as much as it was. So like now you can really see it spin. So with this buffer, and I don't have it quite tuned correctly. This is more of like a seal rather. And you want to make sure that it's on there straight so it doesn't affect the dart, but something like that. And then nice and tight. And now it's a little bit, it still spins, but it's not nearly as free spinning. So if you kind of bump that up, maybe add a couple extra layers or find some type of seal, like flat washer seal that will fit there, maybe an O-ring of some sort to kind of fill that gap. If I find something, I'll update the description with what I did before. But right now it's about 2 or 3 layers of paper towel. So maybe a 4th or a 5th will help kind of stop this from spinning altogether. So that is the upgrade parts for this build. I'm really excited to get into this. So we're going to switch to the overhead camera, get some shots of me building this thing out, and then we'll take it out on the range and have some fun. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so that was a pretty easy put together. The only thing, a couple things that I want to keep an eye out for is the black part that fits into the plastic piece that the actual Picatinny rail, pump grip rail feeds into. That only fits one way. You want to make sure that you get that lined up correctly, otherwise the screw holes won't line up and you'll have a bad time. It's a metal piece, so you're not going to run into too much trouble. The other thing is the 4 screws that come with the top rail Picatinny mount that I've got created here. All 4 screws are identical. They just replace the 2 side screws and then the 2 top screws. So you'll see that. But yeah, other than that, not too shabby. I really enjoy the way it feels. It does add a little bit of heft to it. I'll make sure to put the weight up here versus what it was weighing stock. But it definitely adds, you know, there's a couple metal pieces in here, couple cameras, and a flashlight. So it definitely adds some weight to it. I'm not gonna lie, it's a heavy blaster, but you know, it's worth it. So yeah, absolutely. I think we'll take it out on the range and see how she's hitting, and then we'll bring it back in and talk about the results from there. Let's go get it. All right, so we are back at 45 feet with the XYL Unicorn. This time we have the full upgraded metal kit from XYL themselves, including the spring itself. Slightly heavier prime, but I wanted to test it out for you guys. So let's go ahead and start with Worker Gen 3. Again, we are at 45 feet. All right, next up we have the Ember darts from Adventure Force. We're at 45 feet. Alright, next up we have the Ruby darts from Dart Zone, 45 feet. Okay, next up we have the Dart Zone bamboo darts. These are the 2.0s. 45 feet. All right, guys, we are back in from the range with the upgraded XYL Unicorn, and baby, we've got some numbers to go over. We'll look at the stock performance and then compare that to what we've got going on here. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. First up is the FPS readings. Let's take a look at the stock performance first. This is the same information taken from the review that you can see up on the video, up on the channel here. So looking over this slide, this blaster in its stock configuration isn't the most powerful thing on the market. It does, however, offer some of the best consistency at this price point, and especially at this you know, form factor. Consistency is one of the top things that this thing had going for it from my stock configuration and from my findings, and that's across the board with whatever darts you put through it, whether it's the Embers, the Worker Gen 3 purples, the bamboo from Dart Zone, or even the Ruby darts were hitting a consistent level, and that's one of the things that kind of drew me into this blaster. The Other thing that was really nice to see is in its stock configuration, it was well below that 150 average. So you've got some tuning abilities to get it up to that 150 for things like HVZ. A lot of HVZers are kind of going from that 125 to 150. So with this coming in, 136, 136, and 136 on average for the majority of our darts, and then 146 even for the bamboo darts falling underneath that 150 is phenomenal. So let's take a look at our upgraded version, and that starts with the 1.8 spring and the B-car, as well as the metal internal kit. This is everything except for the spring upgrade. So this has got the 1.8 spring upgrade from Out of Darts, which is sold separately, and then everything from the metal internal kit included except for the spring. So you're looking at a pretty decent bump in performance as far as the average is concerned, going from 159 going from 136 from the Worker Gen 3s to 159, so a decent bump there. A slight hit to the standard deviation going up to the 12.6, which is kind of rough for the Worker Gen 3 darts. They kind of fell short in all categories here. Hitting 191 for the Ember darts on the high, and then a even better standard deviation of 7.0. That's something that we have to call out. So subpar 200 as far as the high goes, 173 on the average for the Ember darts, and then just a killer standard deviation at 7.0. The Bamboo 2.0 Pro darts had a good showing, averaged at 180. They improved on their standard deviation at 8.7, so stellar standard deviation, and then a 180 on the average FPS. Overall, a phenomenal showing. Coming in at that 200 point is kind of where you want to be at for some clubs. If you have a plus 200, then we can kind of look and see where we go from there. But just that 1.8 spring alone really kind of gives us that performance that we're looking for to get to push that limit. And then the average isn't abysmal. It's only 20 points lower, but still a solid standard deviation. So you can know that when you're firing it with that 1.8 spring, that what I'm aiming at is going to be consistent shot after shot after shot. The Ruby darts, kind of similar story, 163, so they saw a slight bump, not as much as the Bamboo, but slightly higher than the Worker Gen 3s, but their standard deviation kind of stayed true. So again, not too shabby one way or the other, but some definite improvement was made versus stock performance, which is kind of what we're going for here. Now let's go ahead and look at that bottom chart here, and this is with the full metal kit, so the 2.0 spring or whatever it is that comes with it, all the metal internals, and the Worker B car on the front. Yeah. So the Dart Zone Bamboo 251 FPS, so a 50 FPS increase on the high, and then 218 on the average. So definitely hitting hotter than 200. So if 200 is your cap, you're gonna probably need to look down to the 1.8 spring and pass on the at least if you're shooting bamboo darts, that is. 15 FPS, 15 standard deviation for the bamboo darts. That's kind of rough. It's kind of at that point where it's like, okay, we got to start worrying about it a little bit. But the Ruby darts coming in at a 6.7. Whoa, baby. Not too bad there. They had the weakest showing on the high, coming in over 200 at 212, and then 197 on the average. So kind of pushing that limit. So if you've got a 200 FPS limit, the Ruby darts might be the way to go, especially if it's a soft limit. And by that, I mean if there's a hard limit and a soft limit when it comes to your FPS caps. A hard limit is you can't have any shots go over the limit, period. Otherwise, the blaster's disqualified or you got to do some adjustments. A soft cap, they'll give you some type of parameters, whether that's like, you get 3 shots out of 10 can only exceed 200. So it's a 200 soft cap. So this, I think, would be a good kind of solution for this blaster with the heavy spring, the metal internal kit, and the ruby darts. Again, for my purposes with the camera, that would work really well because the ruby darts are A, cheap, and B, they are easy to get, and C, they're easy to see on the cameras. So I'm kind of excited to test those darts out in this bad boy. More on that in a future video, so definitely stay tuned. Ember darts, at this point, you can kind of throw them away. Coming in at 240 feet per second, that's way over my 200 limit. The 204 limit was breached with the average, so that definitely disqualifies them. The 12.8 standard deviation is another kind of like, it's not quite the 15, but it's not where it was, with the 8 and the 7. So if you're going to run the Ember darts, your FPS is probably better suited to be with the 1.8. And then the Worker Gen 3 is just really struggling. 230 is a little high for my 200 FPS cap. The 191 is perfect as far as the average goes, but that standard deviation of 21 is no-go. So we'll have to look at some alternatives for that particular loadout, but I think in this form with the heavier spring that comes with the metal internal kit, I think ruby darts are the way to go if you have a sub 200 FPS limit, especially if that's a soft one. But yeah, super impressed. Let's go ahead and jump out to our range tests and see kind of where everything lines up if the FPS kind of matches what we're looking at from the range. So first up here, you've got our 45-foot range. On the left-hand side, you've got the stock performance from the Unicorn. That's from our original review. And then on the right side, you have the Worker B-Car, the 1.8 spring, which is the upgrade spring, not the one included in the metal internal kit, and then all the metal internal kit minus the spring, obviously. So at 45 feet, yeah, you see a little bit of performance boost as far as the shots on target. That might be, it's probably more so to the B-Car versus the spring upgrade, but the spring upgrade does improve that because it gets the darts there, less shots falling below, but you see a better cluster of the two, between the two. And then on the bottom side there, you've got the Bamboo 2.0s, much better cluster. You've got, save the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6 that missed. You've got that really nice cluster just below center. Again, these were shot with a sight that wasn't zeroed in, that was just marked dead center from shot to shot to shot, really kind of leaning more on the side of precision versus the side of accuracy. So absolutely with this one, we could dial the elevation in just a little bit higher, and majority of those shots would be on target, if not bullseyes, slightly wider diameter. Next slide, we've got the Ember darts and the Worker Gen 3 darts. Not much to say here. For some reason, like I said, we had a lot of variation with the Worker Gen 3s with the heavier spring. This one, with the 1.8 spring, we did see a little bit of a bump in the standard deviation when it comes to the Worker dart. So it's, again, raising the elevation of the sight would definitely improve this. Everything had a pretty good horizontal spread, and that's kind of what you're looking for. You want a tighter horizontal spread, and you can be a little bit more forgiving on the vertical one, but I think centering that sight would definitely improve that dramatically. The Ember darts, on the other hand, had a phenomenal showing. It's a 2-foot target, so yeah, like that's, you're looking at like what, about a 12-inch diameter, maybe 16 inches. But solid showing, just a minor adjustment to the elevation, just like the other ones. Again, 45 feet is well within, close quarter combat, that, in my opinion at least. All right, then with that, let's go ahead and switch gears over to the full metal kit. So on the left of your screen, you've got the upgrade. The upgrade we just looked at, so 45 feet, B-car, the 1.8 spring, and the rest of the metal internal kit. And then the right side of your screen is the full metal kit with the actual B-car itself. We're looking at 45 feet. And if you remember, the Ruby darts really kind of shined with the 0.6 standard deviation and the average of 197. This is just a phenomenal showing. A little bit wider spread with the three that, or the four or five that missed, but still a pretty good grouping overall. And like I said, not as tight as the 1.8 spring. So I think we're kind of running into an issue where the barrel isn't quite long enough to take advantage of the pressure the spring is providing. So a longer barrel might give us we might yield a little bit better results when it comes to our actual grouping, but then you're sacrificing overall size of the blaster itself. And that's something that I'm not quite ready to give up yet. I really enjoy the form factor of this one, and I don't want to kind of walk into the, the Nexus Seagull kind of range just yet. I want to keep this as tight as humanly possible. The bamboo darts, on the other hand, wow, what a good showing. They really dig this upgraded spring. So, having the 250 FPS range, that's on the high, and we had a really good grouping. So 250 on the high is a little much for my 200 limit, obviously, but coming in at 218, that's not too bad. It is the standard deviation, again, being 15 is kind of rough, but you can't deny that showing, that grouping isn't something to admire. So wow, it's really good. So moving on to the next one, again, this is the full metal kit with the upgraded spring on the right. Same thing minus the spring. This is the 1.8 that you saw before, and those ember darts, though, you thought the bamboo 2.0s were good. Look at that, the ember darts, holy smokes. And again, the problem arises, for me at least, coming in with an average of 204, not too bad, but 248 on the high as far as FPS goes. That's just a little too hot for my play, for my field. So unfortunately, for plinking, awesome. 250, dead center, 100% shots, all within, what is that? Maybe 8 inches? I mean, that center circle is a 6-inch bullseye. So maybe 8 inches, 9 if you want to be argumentative about it. That one shot that did fall low, it's kind of, that kind of ruins it. But even if you do include it, you're looking at what, 12 inches, a 12-inch diameter spread. Nice job, truly nice job. The Worker Gen 3 darts didn't have a bad showing. In my book, didn't have the same cluster, but still had a really good showing, and that's even with the horrible standard deviation of 21. Now, again, coming in as a high of 230 is just a little too hot for my taste, especially, all things considered, with 200 FPS limit. 191 is a great average, but the 230 is just a little too hot for me. So again, plinking wise, I think I'm going to have to go with the ember darts, but overall, I'm impressed with the performance of that blaster. Okay, so the next couple slides are some of the kind of the variations So I wanted to make sure everybody had the information that wasn't just what I showed as far as the upgrade video goes. So I went ahead and took some FPS readings and some range tests for just the 1.8 barrel, or I'm sorry, the 1.8 spring, and then the standard included stock plunger kit and everything like that. So this slide here is the top one's obviously stock, so the stock spring, stock internals, everything. This is from my original review. The bottom one, as you can see, is the 1.8 spring, the worker scar, and then it says stock plunger. That's like the stock plunger, the pusher, all that stuff. I just wanted to preface that. And I'm actually kind of impressed. Like, this is a pretty good showing, across the board. We see some increases on the average. The standard deviation kind of took a little bit of a hit, but everything came within, the high is under, right around that 200 feet per second. Obviously, the Ember darts and the Ruby darts came in a little bit hotter, but that's not too hateful. The average is coming in between the 160, mid to high 160s, all the way up to, high 170s. So again, a pretty good showing. And that 209 and the 202 really isn't too hateful. I wouldn't be too afraid, for a soft limit of 200 to show those. So if we switch over to the next slide, is going to be the that same kind of setup. This is the, again, 1.8, the worker scar, and then the plastic, the stock internals. All had really good showings. I mean, all things considered, the 1.8 spring upgrade is a phenomenal spring. And it's kind of, with the length of the barrel and this bearing scar, really kind of lend itself to a great 45-foot or less experience. And some obviously are a little bit better than others. And the Ruby darts, there's a few that fell short, but a good overall cluster of that 15 or 16 there. Just a slight increase on elevation. The bamboo darts had a phenomenal showing. So if we go back and look at theirs, bamboo finished at 197, which is great. Average of that was on the high, and then an average of 179. Standard deviation of 11. That's not too hateful. So the bamboo Dart Zone Bamboo 2.0 darts, solid performance on FPS and not too shabby as far as the actual spread goes. The Worker Gen 3 purple darts, again, it's very similar showing to the bamboo darts, but still a little bit low. Like the vertical spread's a little bit higher, which isn't too hateful. It's still within 24 inches, so it's not that bad. That bad. But the 16 FPS, or excuse me, the 16.6 standard deviation, in my opinion, is kind of pushing. I know 15, but you can't deny that coming in with that type of performance when it comes to the 45-foot range, you take like 2 or 3 steps forward, you're at 40 feet and you're hitting that target every time. Adjust your window or your elevation. I think that's a common phrase here, right? So overall, I really dug it. It's a great job. Now, some of you might be wondering, like, well, what happens if we take the 2.0 spring from the metal internal kit and put it with the plastic internals? After all, the plastic internals are going to be lighter, so especially the plunger head, it's going to move faster than the heavier metal one. What does that do us? Well, you mad lads, let's take a look and see. So, metal internal kit, spring, worker B-car, stock plunger. It got a little ridiculous to the point where I was kind of worried. So I didn't actually finish the test when it comes to the FPS readings. I just did the Worker Gen 3 and the Ember darts, as you can tell. The 19 standard deviation really kind of drew it off. The 17, it was just like, oh, that's really high. I really don't want to continue. If it would have been, 17 and then one of the other ones was like 15, I was like, okay, 12, like, okay, let's go ahead and see what the other ones do. But it was just all over the place. There really wasn't a good set of darts, essentially. I mean, they're all brand new darts, but there wasn't a good showing, rather. So I was like, you know what, we'll just call it what it is. You know, the 240 for the Worker Gen 3. I mean, that beats out a lot of the other showings, and it really just kind of goes to show you that, like, there's a lot of power in this blaster, and it's just about finding the right combination of darts, the right kind of combination of spring. The scar can make a difference. You know, I might decide to get a longer barrel and maybe cut it down a little bit so you get a little bit more barrel. That's something I might tool around with. But yeah, there's a lot of different kind of knobs you could, just with like any blaster. Like, there's a lot of different knobs that you can twist and turn and levers to pull to get different performance levels. And with the precision that this blaster offers, I really want to kind of really dial it in. Yeah, just for giggles, I just wanted to see what it would look like. So, okay, so let's go ahead and give my final thoughts. And it kind of breaks down to this. You're either going to buy the metal internal kit and use it or not. I feel like the 1.8 spring really had a fantastic showing with the Bamboo 2.0 darts. 45 feet, not a problem. Just a solid all-around, like, FPS, precision, accuracy, all that stuff. Fantastic. If you're running the metal internal kit, you know, I'd be hard-pressed to say use something other than Ember darts. And I really hate saying that. I really, really do, because they are not my favorite dart. They don't show up on camera very well. They're hard to find if you play outdoors. If you're playing indoors, like a place like Kane, it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, if you're not recording. But, you know, you can't argue that precision. The FPS, you know, coming in at 204 on the average, that's fantastic, right at that 200 range. Standard deviation was a little bit higher than I like, but not hateful. I mean, it's still 12.8. That's still, you know, good enough. You know, it's not 6 like, you know, the stock spring and stuff like that, but it's still acceptable. Okay, so what kind of features did I really enjoy about this blaster, and what did we fix with this upgrade? So, like I said, customization options are plentiful, right? The different barrel lengths, you've got exposed barrel, so you can use any type of scar, bearing scar you want. You know, the rail system that I've created here really opens up as far as where you can mount stuff and mounting additional accessories. I'm still not 100% pleased with this solution right here. I like it more than this, but I think this is probably going to change for me. I still am not quite satisfied. I think what I'll probably end up doing is getting some type of like wrap that has a D-ring on it and just wrapping it around this side right here. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not really going to attach anything here because I don't want this mechanism in here to fail. So I'm not really 100% pleased with the sling mount solution that I've got here. That's one thing that I would, I'd like to see change down the line. And again, that's kind of what I was working on with that buffer tube stock. We'll see how it goes and see kind of if there's any progression with that. Oh, so the other thing that I want to mention too is, if you're running the metal upgrade kit, the metal pusher, sometimes the return spring isn't enough to actually seat or seal the blaster, seal the breech. And that's usually with a dart. So if there's no dart in there, then it'll seal every time and I can fire it without a problem. If there's a dart in there, the return spring isn't strong enough to bring everything all the way forward to fire. So you'll have to ensure that you've got that last little millimeter kind of clicked in, which is good to do anyway, making sure that you have that fully sealed breech. And you know, you don't have any air leaking out or anything like that, but just know that you will have to be conscious of that kind of like mechanical system failure for not completely racking the dart all the way in. One thing that I am going to look at and see if there's a solution for on my end is maybe a stronger return spring that you know, maybe we'll take one from the Seagull and see if that one works, but it should be a pretty standard spring. This one fits pretty tight around the barrel, and it's just loose in there. There's no, you know, it doesn't like kind of seat into anything. It just loosely fits around the barrel and just expands. So I don't think you can put a spacer or anything in there, just the way that the mechanics work. I think we need an actual stronger spring. So I'm gonna look into that. If I find something, I'll list it in the detail, in the description. I still need a better sling mount. I already talked about that, but overall, like, build quality is phenomenal. I really enjoy this blaster. It's one of my favorite blasters from 2023. And I don't play CQB that much, but this has really kind of sparked my interest in, you know, kind of perfecting that craft, perfecting the movement, perfecting, you know, switching when you're going around different corners, you know, getting real nice and tight into those corners, into those thresholds when you're trying to clear rooms. So I will definitely be using this blaster. Oh, I forgot to mention the other upgrade that was not shown was this. This is just a wrap I got off of Amazon. It's just a kind of a pistol sleeve or whatever. And it's actually really nice. It feels good in the hands. It adds a little bit of rubber texture to the grip. It doesn't slide around, which is nice. Completely forgot to mention that. Yeah. You won't be able to use any of the bottom attachments, but I don't plan on it. So, but yeah, I think it was $6 or $7 on Amazon, but worth every penny, and it feels really good in the hands. So definitely highly recommend that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I know it was a long one, but I really enjoy this. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of video. If you like the new kind of setup I did with the kind of structuring the video slightly different than in the past. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. If you want to see more mod videos, I upgraded my long shot, X-Shot long shot, so definitely check that one out. Otherwise, make sure you get subscribed for more videos. We've got a whole bunch coming out. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.